So just because you spend a lot of time pulling FPDS data or reading RFIs, yes, you've aggregated a lot of data. You've done a lot of research, but you're missing that next piece, which is a good chunk of these might already be pre-positioned and folks have put themselves in the right place, but that doesn't mean all of them. And so what I recommend for an outside person to come in is you need to spot.
Hey, welcome to the Stargazy Brief. Today we are talking with Derek Hoyt, who is the co-founder of GovSignals, a GovCon procurement and capture and proposal management system that is genuinely built for the GovCon market. Now, Derek has worked as an intelligence officer for the U.S. government, a program manager for places like Palantir, Amazon. He has such a rich U.S. GovCon background, along with technology and AI. Today, we learned the top things you need in your software to make sure that you don't get fined or kicked out of your contract if you're working in GovCon, the top signals to look for, both before and during and after go, no-go qualification decisions to make sure that you are truly going to win your RFPs. And 3, what to actually do if you see an RFP in SAM.gov and it's not really meant for you, but you really want to go for it. What should you do? How do you win? He's going to let you know. Hey, Derek, welcome to the Stargazy Brief. Thank you so much for being on.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Chris.
So, Derek, I think what people are really craving are the backroom conversations, what they're probably not going to hear on LinkedIn, what they're not going to post about on LinkedIn. So I really want to hit those today, like the myths, the traps, like a new win playbook around GovCon proposals and capture. So I want to start at the very beginning. For most teams, that is going to be like SAM.gov. And it feels like a great equalizer, right? Everyone can go to the same place to find the exact same opportunities. Therefore, we're all equal. But do you really think that SAM.gov is actually a fair playing field?
So SAM.gov provides a compliance for the visibility of these procurements. So it's where deals are going to be seen. It's not necessarily where deals are born. So for instance, like by the time something hits SAM.gov, there's been many months of work and preparation from the contracting officers before that opportunity even hits the public markets. So there's been months also of quiet shaping behind the scenes, program managers aggregating final requirements, getting organized and ready to even get the statements of work ready to be flown out. Incumbents are going to naturally be defending their turf because they knew the renewals were coming and things like that. So yes, it's technically open, but it's not necessarily equal access. So what I would say is the real game starts like months earlier. And SAM.gov is just that formal declaration of a bidding opportunity. And this is exactly why at GovSignals, we bring in more holistic data sources. It's not just SAM.gov. This is why we need to bring in like IDIQs and different contract vehicles into the system. So that way you can see the full scope and breadth of bidding opportunities that are available to you.
Yeah. So what would you say to the small to medium business that really wants to be successful when bidding in GovCon, but they're just waiting for those deals to come in or those opportunities to come in through SAM.gov and then bid on them? And they're just trying to bid as much as possible, as many as possible to hopefully win, a few things.
My biggest thing, especially for a small and mid-sized client, my recommendation is to partner. So that's where you really get to set yourself into position to build that past performance and to establish your credibility in the market. Trying to go direct was for pure SAM.gov opportunities and try to go to a straight 0-1 from like a prime contract. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend look at who are the primes that are winning these contracts. Where can your services nest into their suite? Because they also want small and mid-sized companies to bring in to go after a lot of these. So I always recommend partner first and look for those platforms like GovSignals that help you find bidding opportunities that are in support of and work with current prime vendors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also wondering, like, let's say I'm a small, medium-sized business who really wants to respond to something I see, but I don't know who to partner with. Should I just not be bidding at all, or should I be working hard to find that partner? Should I be doing something else? What would your suggestion be in that case?
Yeah, so it's like a two-step process. So step one, you need to understand, is your services and capabilities valuable to the federal market? And so that's the first thing. And the way you can do that is using systems that help scan and look at all the opportunities that are coming out and determine, we generally recommend doing this on an automated fashion with AI, are there even relevant bidding opportunities for my skills and my services or products? And assuming yes, then the next question is, okay, I find an opportunity. It comes down from SAM.gov. I can provide my widget for this opportunity, and this will meet all of these requirements, but I don't have the team or the size to do all the programmatic requirements, as an example. Well, this is a great opportunity then for you to take that opportunity that came in and then go networking events, trade shows, things like that, and start to actually find these prime vendors that are there and be able to start building that network and say, hey, I'm finding these opportunities. I can provide this value above and beyond the competitors. Let's partner. You can handle all the programmatic and compliance requirements. I can provide my solutions and offering, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I feel like that's really relevant not just to GovCon. That's relevant to just for the people listening who might not be in GovCon. If you are in EU public procurements, UK public procurements, or even B2B commercial, this is 100% the way to go. I'm with you. And I feel like once you're in the game, the obsession is, of course, going to be pipeline. And so every single capture deck looks full of opportunities, and every BD swears that they're shaping the deals, right? Of course. But how much of the average GovCon pipeline is like not real?
The way I look at pipelining, I don't know. I have a somewhat cynical view on it, so I'll just kind of just be transparent.
I think
I
most
would,
proposal people do. Like the people like us who've actually done it, I think they
yeah.
have a realistic view. I'll just,
There we go.
so
I
I'll let you
like
go.
that. Fair enough. Yeah, what I'd say is like pipeline health and like viability. I would say, I don't know. My gut is always like half, cut it in half. And the reason why, and it makes sense. It's an incentive standpoint as well. Like, the BD and capture folks, they need to get pegs on the board. And, what are we going to go after? So that's the difference between aspirational targets and then targets that we actually are going to be able to land because we have the access, the network, and the experience, right? So I think what happens is we conflate them both in our pipeline, and we're not true to ourselves, because I had to run both as well. I've done the proposal side, but then I also had to do capture pursuits. And so it's this, how do I mix my aspirational targets that I need to realign and get resources in position to go after versus ones that I would be like, have more confidence in established already. And this right here is exactly why, like at GovSignals, we allow multiple lists, multiple Kanban boards. So you can actually be true to yourself and separate, okay, this list is going to be dedicated to my aspirational targets. This one, I have the network and I'm ready to work towards these people.
I'm wondering what you would try and tell proposal and capture people who are maybe put in position to just fill up pipeline with opportunities, even though or respond to those opportunities, even though they know they're not really going to turn out. What should they be telling their top line leaders to make them make better strategic decisions?
So generally in Q4, it's like, okay, we're in the new fiscal year. How are we going to be forward looking? And what I generally recommend is when you look at bidding opportunities that are coming down, you should be determining, fit and function to your core capabilities and offering. That's like just the very first pass, right? And you should be able to do this quickly, especially with automated tools. Fit and function, yes, this is a viable opportunity. And then you should then do quick second level thinking, right? Which is like, do I have the network? Do I even know who the program manager is for this relevant opportunity? Do I have a partner that has access there? Do I have other people that I can work with to get after this? And then you can qualify that bid a little higher. And this is very much where we have a natural tendency as humans to go into storytelling mode versus like data driven, like with real intent and signals. And so it's a balance. And I totally understand that, but I default to data driven work. And so with that pretense, it's very much about, can I myself as a capture lead qualify this opportunity that I'm putting into my pipeline? Because once an opportunity goes into a pipeline, I'm committing work to my limited finite resources team, right? I have a limited number of sales folks, limited number of BD people. And so it's a matter of, is this what I want to chase going forward?
Yeah. And I feel as though these same people, they're usually spending hours, those RFIs, those FPDS reports, competitor write-ups, but they often don't feel like they kind of have that edge. They are spending a lot of time doing what they might feel like are the right things. And so because you see so many teams and just throughout your career, you've seen so many teams have a really specific process to hopefully win these opportunities. Is there something that you're constantly seeing people do maybe wrong or maybe it's just unnecessary that you would tell them to just stop doing?
I like that question, that framing. And the reason why is because I think what happens is folks confuse research with insight. So just because you spend a lot of time pulling FPDS data or reading RFIs and trying to get a trend and understand the budget pieces, yes, you've aggregated a lot of data. You've done a lot of research, but you're missing that next piece, which is the insight that was gleaned from that data at speed. And so the real advantages start coming from like the pattern recognition standpoint, meaning like who's actually getting those repeat awards, which contracting officers favor potentially certain vendors. You can see these patterns. How are the funding cycles lining up? The data itself, because a lot of this is public data, the data itself is not the edge. It's
Right.
actually the meaning and the patterns in the data is what differentiates the value prop here. And this is exactly why at like GovSignals, we established a series of AI recommendation engines and auto insight extraction entities because we need to pull the insights out of this data for each individual client. Because what we don't want is just to visualize more data. Everybody can
Yeah.
visualize data. What we want is let's pull the insights out so that we can be more effective with our time.
I think just based on that timing issue, I think we all have had that experience where the RFP comes in, and we all kind of do look at each other and say, hey, has this already been decided for somebody else? Like, was this written for me to win or was this written for somebody else? And so, do you buy that by the time the RFP goes out or an opportunity goes up on SAM.gov, that the winner's already picked? Or do you think that the random person who maybe has those insights from that research has a real shot?
Yeah, I hear this question a lot. My rough estimate is like a 70-30 split. I would say generally when our, especially bigger ones, big recompetes go out, I would say, sure, maybe 70% have slant or a bias, but it doesn't necessarily mean that these are unwinnable. So sure, maybe 70% of the RFPs are shaped towards someone.
Right.
A company or a group of companies have been doing their job. They've been helping and working with the government clients, understanding their true pain points because they're in there. They're the incumbents or they have the access. Because, right, the ultimate goal here is to provide value to the government agencies so that we can save taxpayer dollars. So, with that pretense, they're doing their job. And so, sure, a good chunk of these might already be pre-positioned and folks have put themselves in the right place. But that doesn't mean all of them. That rough 30% that is potentially winnable for an outside enter and person to come in is you need to spot when the incumbent is vulnerable. And so this is maybe when they're getting bad CPAR ratings and they just weren't able to deliver. You see turnover in incumbents' leadership staff or things like that. Or there's a brand new contracting officer that got to that office. They come in with a fresh set of eyes or a different expectation, or maybe there's funding turbulence and things like that at the host agency. Those cracks are opportunities. So what I always recommend is like, if you're late to the party, don't chase everything. Chase the instability. And that's why I go back to the data-driven insights paradigm. And then that helps you find that rough 30% paradigm.
Yeah, I love that because it's a really nuanced opinion. I'm wondering if there are specific signals that you look for, not just in terms of turbulence, maybe with your competitors. If I am out there in the field and I need to build that pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I can be looking at the incumbents. They're having these issues or having these changes. Great, I can jump on those. But are there any other signals outside of that, maybe with target accounts that I'm looking at or anything like that, that will signal to me that I should be changing my focus to build that pipeline?
Yeah. One of my personal favorites. So there's a couple signals that I personally like to use. Um, so the first is GAO reports and OIG reports that the government publishes. These are great because they literally highlight when there's pain in an agency and where there are deficiencies. And so this is naturally creating a signal that, hey, there is an ineffectiveness here that we need to deliver a solution. And there's generally points of contact in these reports. There's folks that are queuing up like offices and things like that and expressing pain. So that's a great way, especially if you are a capture manager that has certain accounts. You should constantly be looking at those GAO and OIG reports for those respective accounts. And then you have something to actually start the conversation with. And so it actually opens up a door there. So
Yeah.
that's one signal that I truly enjoy. The other signal that I like too is when it's underfunded obligations for like a prime contractor. So where you can actually see when they're like not, so like let's say maybe they were awarded $100 million contract vehicle, but they've only been able to basically be invoice up to, say, I don't know, 80 million, and they're getting close to the end of the life cycle of that contract, going to those prime vendors and being like, hey, here are services capabilities that align to this overall scope. I can work with you all to help close that remainder 20 million gap, et cetera. And these are the type of conversation openers that happen when you start to look for alternative signals versus just, is the government requirements a perfect fit for my capability? So it's this multifaceted signal system is what really makes winning capture teams more effective.
Obviously, I know the GovSignals does these things, but let's say I can't use GovSignals yet. Maybe I'm stuck on something old or I don't have budget yet. What would you suggest to the people who want to do this signal based selling, but yeah, don't have GovSignals? What are your best practices there?
Like everything, when you're in resource constrained environments, it's prioritize and execute. So that is like my ethos for both my personal life and business and things like that. So very much because we don't always have unlimited resources.
No.
So what I, so what I recommend is prioritize the accounts that or the agencies that you either already have access to or your products and services already directly align, and then build a playbook and keep the playbook simple. So meaning these are the quick signals that I get the highest value, signal to noise ratio, right? So I get the best value out of these certain signals, and it's a repeatable process that I can do even manually. Because once you have these simple playbooks in place, you build a mechanism that then allows you to actually then grow your
Yeah.
respective business, and you get better feedback too.
Are there any suggestions of signals to pay attention to now that maybe they wouldn't have paid attention to a couple years ago? Like, are there any changes or is it about the same regardless of other changes going on?
What's interesting, especially now, what we've been seeing, I would say in the last like 2 quarters, right? So just even looking at the data and things that are coming out, a lot of the services related contracts have been struggling. And so what we've been seeing, so like from a signal standpoint, I guess at a macro level, we're seeing service providers, either contracts being canceled or really struggling to demonstrate their value proposition. But what we've seen though, ironically, is a lot of like DoD product related companies are doing very well, like especially in like space. So the space industry is very much heating up, and it's a great space. It's a great spot to be in. So this goes again to why I always emphasize on the partnering standpoint and pieces like that. If you are a high quality service provider of certain components, maybe you should be looking at how you can partner with certain companies that are really focused in space and delivering that value. If you have the credentials and the security requirements and things like that, it's a great market right now to be in. So that's just a quick tip/example that we're seeing at our level.
So, if you provide janitorial services, go clean out a space station. Not really. I know that's not what you're saying. But yeah, I guess thinking about it differently is going to be incredibly useful for winning those contracts. Are we missing kind of an insider move when we are looking at this though? I know everyone wants a silver bullet, but I know that there are some hidden intent signals that people probably aren't quite looking at. You'd see like if I can see this signal or maybe a
Mhm,
combination of specific signals, I know they have a high intent of moving and
mhm.
maybe moving with what we're providing.
Yep. No, that makes sense. So what I generally recommend, and this is why we at GovSignals have automated a lot of the go, no go review process. Because when you think about it, the government is issuing publicly standardized structure in some degree, right? You're going to have your proposal instructions, you're going to have a statement of work, and maybe some appendices and things like that with some additional materials. So everyone's seeing the same information. And so the when you look at it from just the front piece, like grabbing the solicitation bundle, running through an effective go no go at speed versus spending 2 weeks doing a go no go review and building PowerPoint decks and doing all this process, and you're trying to do this retrieval of information and trying to validate stuff. A lot of this is repeatable processes. And so what we realize, like at GovSignals, for us to provide maximum value quickly is with one click of a button, let a bunch of AI agents go and pull and analyze and review each of these factors and be able to establish a framework of analysis that then gives the final decision-making authority a more confident answer. Should we spend resources on this or not? And so what we find is like, it depends on where we're defining signal. If this is at the true tip of the spear where you're the boots on ground person trying to make contacts and stuff like that, that's a different set of signals. And we have a different suite of capabilities for the boots on ground person versus in-house at headquarters capture manager that's trying to qualify all the bids to then pass to the proposal team to actually write the process. So
Yeah.
different intent, different signals, different intents, but a lot of this can be automated to maximize the decision-making power that each of these individuals need to have.
Yeah. So it's what you're saying is I mean, you're saying a lot of things, but that there are signals throughout every stage of the process that you should be looking at, and those look
Mhm.
different, and you should be changing your tack or decision based on what those signals are throughout the process. Like it's not I just start my signal over here during capture or during go no go qualification, the whole thing.
It's a continuum. Yeah. And the reason why is because your front end BD folks, they're going to be looking for certain things. And then once the opportunity actually comes out, there could be a compliance clause that was put in at the last minute from a contracting officer. Well, now that's why you still need to run through the next phase. And so then when you run through the next analysis, you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's a red flag clause. Maybe they're making strict terms and conditions, no negotiation. Well, okay, depending upon your service and offering, you might want to negotiate those T's and C's. So this is where each gate needs to have its own suite of signals.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us proposal people, we like to measure how well we're doing those signals and doing those gates based on win rate or shortlist rate. Do you think we should be looking just at the win rate, just at the shortlist rate? Should we be looking at other KPIs that actually measure how well we are doing in responding?
I've always loved the win rate metric because if you mess with the denominator, you can change the rate however you want. So I say win rate makes people feel good, but what it doesn't tell you is if you're playing the right game or not, or being effective in your BD spend. So you could have a 70% win rate and you could be chasing tiny pre-wired deals that are like low risk. You're not taking any risk and you're just staying in your lane. From a win rate perspective, wow, you have a phenomenal win rate. Your growth is an incremental linear growth. You're not taking risk. And maybe for some businesses that works. But if you're in high risk, commoditized market or things like that, or you're trying to grow effectively, I don't think win rate is the effective way to look at opportunities or, determine, are you effective in your proposal writing shop and your overall BD engine. What I like to look at a personal level is this like I even talk about this at GovSignals all the time. So it's efficiency and effectiveness. It's this balance between both. If you bias too much towards efficiency, then yes, you might have a well-running oiled machine, but you're not delivering tremendous value. But you need effectiveness as well. And when you have that balance, that's when you get outsized growth and you're able to deliver value for your clients. How well of our efforts, efforts can be valued in money spent, direct labor costs, like however you're tracking effort at your company. So like if you have your labor categories for your BD teams and stuff, you can measure how much direct labor and time and cost was put into your overall pipeline here.
Yeah.
And then based on the opportunity's quality and output, and meaning, did you win this opportunity or not? And you put in all this time and money and resources. And then did you go after opportunities that were potentially good fits that would have grown your company? And you can start to measure then your effectiveness there. So I built a suite of KPIs, like it's not just one. So in order to measure efficiency and effectiveness.
Like I've rarely met a proposal person who said we should be measuring ourselves based on win rate. It's always been because we don't have as much say over the win rate. So why would we even measure that? But I think what you're saying is a completely different reason of why it's not good. We have kind of the thought lately that we should be measured by almost revenue percentage, but I don't know what you think about that.
Who's the we? Is this the proposal managers, the entire BD pipeline? Curious on the persona that this KPI should be attached to.
I think it should be both, honestly.
Okay. For BD shops in general, right? It's like how much time and money was spent. That's the input. For the output, which is awarded dollars or booked. You can even do
Yeah.
booked revenue. And so you can do ratios like that to kind of determine, are we on the right track? Because I can give a tactical example. It's like because of some of these large DoD capture efforts, you might spend, a 10-person shop fully focused in BD and sales and stuff like that for like 8 to 10 months. That is a
Yeah.
huge upfront cash cost. that you then have to then recover and, exponentially more. And so
Right.
tracking those over the course of a year or two is really important because you're fronting a lot of costs. It's this delicate balance. So that's why measuring various KPIs based on inputs and the
Yeah.
desired output, I find is most effective.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I wonder if there is like a delineation between KPIs that are really useful for public tenders versus private tenders, or if it's the same. That's a topic for another time. It's just something I've been
Yeah, that'd be
thinking hard
interesting.
about.
Yeah, that'd be
I
interesting
think
to
there
chase
might
through a little bit.
I think there might be some differences, but at the same time, a lot of overlap that we're not thinking about on the commercial side that we should be stealing from the public sector, honestly. So I also want to take a closer look at the playbook that as proposal people are often using. Like a lot of times we're waiting for something to pop up on SAM.gov and then we're like, okay, cool, opportunity, amazing. Let's respond. And then we'll repeat that process. So I'm wondering if there is something new in the playbook that we should be really focusing on and who's at risk if we just run that same playbook over and over again. Like I know that you mentioned you need to be partnering with somebody. You need to be doing better capture and BD where you are talking with people and trying to influence far before it comes out on SAM.gov. But is there something else we should be adding to our playbook?
So I say the new playbook is intent driven capture. So the old model, like you said, wait for the RFP, respond, rinse and repeat in that cycle.
Yeah.
I would say now it's detect intent from the buyer, shape early, and then automate a lot of the processes. Because teams that are winning now are blending the combination of human relationships and capabilities with AI driven signal detection and automation processes. For example, like this is seeing where budgets and behavior and people align before opportunities have a name, and then being able to get in position and ready and organized within your AI platforms. Those that don't adapt to this new paradigm, basically what I argue is they're going to become what I call compliance factories. And the reason by that is because, contracting officers, they got to get that minimum of 3 bids in order to offer an award. And so when you just go into the legacy paradigm, you're just throwing in bids, which just checks a box for the contracting officer. Yep, I got my 3 bids. Awesome. Yep, this one meets all the intent for the requirements, and I move on.
Yeah.
But the other companies just spend a lot of time and energy to just be that compliance checkbox.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a lot of time for nothing back. And just so
Mhm.
you can help with the procurement person have that other checkbox. And I know that you've been really vocal about the risk of using non-FedRAMP high authorized tools for defense contracting, which makes a lot of sense. But how big of a problem is this really from your perspective? And what does it say about the lack of clarity when handling controlled and classified information? Or highly sensitive system data like federal law enforcement operational data or treasury systems or energy grid management systems or a whole host of things that we don't want released accidentally to a public system or something that will be trained on this really high informational data.
Yeah, I think this is actually with the speed and rise of AI innovation and a lot of technologists coming into this space, but not actually understanding the nuance and why these security frameworks have been put in place to safeguard CUI data specifically. We stamp the data with CUI because it's truly sensitive and we don't want our adversaries to get a hold of it. And because of that, they've established a couple frameworks. So you might hear the phrase like CMMC level 2. CMMC level 2 is just for a company. It means as a company, I can handle and store in-house CUI data.
Mm.
And that's why a lot of the requirements are like, door badging and stuff like that. It is just for the company itself. FedRAMP is for cloud-based providers. And so what that means is that as a cloud-based software application or platform, so meaning I have a product or platform that's in, say, GovCloud or using AWS as an example, that system, that platform must be FedRAMP certified, which is different than CMMC level 2. And the reason why is because it's a different type of set of controls. Because it's a cloud-based environment, it has different access points. It's not disconnected in an on-prem server or things like that. It must have a different suite of controls. And the problem that I've been seeing in the market lately is folks that are platform providers and some of these new startups and things like that are coming out. They're saying, we're CMMC level 2. You can put all your CUI data into our cloud-based environment. No, you can't, because then that doesn't have the right controls. to manage CUI data in the cloud. And so
Mm.
it's actually a violation of the False Claims Act and a bunch of DFARS clauses. And it's a pretty serious impact. And what I mean by that is like, as a government contractor, if you put CUI data into a cloud-based platform that is not FedRAMP certified, that is a violation of your contract. And therefore you could actually be fined or your contract's terminated. Like there are serious implications. And the Department of Justice does actually go after companies for this effort, and you are fined significant funds at that.
Yeah, that's a huge point. I feel like it'd be good for you to tell us, if we are looking for new software in the GovCon space, what specific questions should we be asking to make sure that we are getting tools
Mhm.
that are making sure that we are being compliant and that we won't be fined?
Yeah, it's actually really, thankfully, this is the first time I say it's really simple. If you are handling CUI data and you want to buy a cloud based software platform, you can literally just go to the FedRAMP marketplace, and it is a public registry of every company that is certified and has passed formally the FedRAMP audits, and it's a public listing and you can see all of them. It's like, because you could quote unquote claim that you're FedRAMP ready, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything. You have to go through the 3PAO audit, get sign off by the government that yes, you can handle this classification of data. Because at the end of the day, it's government data. And so that's why the government has to sign off that your system is ready for this. So yes, it's the FedRAMP marketplace.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes because
Hmm.
of course that's going to be really important to our
Hmm.
GovCon folks.
Yep.
I feel like this goes back to the first point I made, and that is I think when you are looking for proposal management software, that you don't just want to buy one that like matches your feature list, although that's important. It's also working with a company and founders and people who are building the product who have lived that life before, who have responded to RFPs and specifically within that industry because you have that background, that really deep background within the GovCon space and responding to RPs in the GovCon space and make sure that you're following the rules completely and you're aware of them as opposed to somebody who just isn't trying to be malicious, just doesn't
Hmm.
know that that's even
Hmm.
a thing.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about this just because with my background and different pieces like that and not wanting this CUI data in the open in an unsecured environments to make it readily accessible for adversaries.
Of course, there is a new layer of uncertainty, the shutdown, of course, that's going on. And every time the government grinds to a halt, that means contractors end up holding their breath. People lose their jobs. And so, how do you see the recent shutdown ripple through the GovCon ecosystem? Like, do you see stalling, missed invoices? Like, and what's your playbook for the companies to stay solvent and visible until the government shutdown ends?
And the way I look at shutdowns, like I still remember the first shutdown that I experienced. So that was in 2013 during the era of sequestration during the Obama administration. And since then, this has become a rather, unfortunately, a common occurrence. But what I have found just over the years is I actually recommend folks to diversify your income pools. And what I mean by that is if you are a pure federal contractor, look at ways to potentially expand into the SLED market. And you actually can diversify there. If you are building a true unique widget for a DoD platform, okay, maybe this isn't applicable. But for
Yeah.
services companies and things like that that are generally be hit the hardest, your services can be applicable and valued at the state and local. Diversify your income streams because it can help offset some of the risk. So this is a temporary blip, right? This won't go on for years. And if you have state and local contracts coming in and acting as a stopgap measure, and this is actually why, even at a personal level, at GovSignals, we do both data feeds coming into the system because we have a personal conviction for this to
Yeah.
help provide government contractors new markets that they just didn't even realize was open to them because they didn't realize, wow, okay, my services can actually be applicable to multiple government agencies beyond just the federal.
So the main thing is to diversify. I heard like going to the sled market. Would you also suggest possibly even going into the commercial market if your services would overlap?
If possible, definitely. I have found it can be a big challenge for companies to manage both a commercial and government portfolio, but it is very possible. You just have to reorganize a bit because it's actually two different cultures,
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
as you directly have experienced too, right? So They operate at two different cadences and two different speeds. And so if the leadership team understands the nuances, then I think it would be a very successful business setup. But senior leadership down to the tactical executioners really have to understand the implications for the two different portfolios.
But I do think it is tough, and I am seeing quite a few people on LinkedIn who I personally know who work as either capture proposal people within the GovCon space, and they have lost their jobs just within the past weeks. Like, do you have any suggestions for those people? Like, what not just companies but individuals can do in that case, just to, I guess, have more stability, I suppose, in their jobs. Like, should they be more working with SLED companies, with commercial companies, or is there something else that you would suggest?
So it's a very valuable skill set. So if you have the ability to communicate effectively and to write and be organized and to be able to think critically, those are incredibly valuable skill sets in the
Yeah.
marketplace. So I would say is all is not lost if you have those skill sets and that drive. There are companies throughout the United States that are willing, very and eager to hire for those skill sets. The interesting thing too, what I would say from this new wave of AI as well, being able to take time to understand how to use these type of systems and how to be effective with them. A lot of companies right now, right, are looking for people to help them adopt AI, but they don't know how to do that. So if you can also find ways to be an advocate or take the time to understand how to implement AI at the proposal level or capture level and think through this. It's an additional tool in your toolbox when you go to talk with potential employers as well, on how you can take your already proven skill sets with modern technology and bring this in. Business owners would be very interested to understand how to implement that across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. So, Derek, let's say people are listening to this conversation. They want to get to know you better. They want to get to know GovSignals better. Where can they find you and where can they find GovSignals?
Yep. So GovSignals is www.govsignals.ai. So you can go to our website. And then for me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. You can always reach out to me and connect. I'm always happy to have a chat. We're at a lot of trade shows and things like so. If any time that you see us, please swing by our booth. We're very passionate about this industry and always like to hear everyone's perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the Stargazy Brief. And hopefully we'll have you on again sometime.
Sounds good, Chris. Appreciate that.